So during this time, many of the practices of Islam became what they are today. The teachings of Islam are found in the Muslim holy book, which is the Quran. And tradition holds that the angel Gabriel revealed the Quran to Muhammad over a period of 22 years, beginning with those first revelations in the year 610. And the Quran is written in Arabic, and according to tradition, must be read in Arabic to really understand the truth of its revelation. Muhammad's revelations became the holy book and the final authority in matters of faith and lifestyle for all Islamic people. And unlike the Bible, that has multiple authors who compiled the teachings over a long period of time, the Quran is considered to be written by God, or the words in the Quran are the unfiltered words of God. The central tenets of the Quran are also known as the 5 pillars of Islam. The first pillar, which all others are based on, is to acknowledge that there is no God but God and Muhammad is his prophet. The second pillar is prayer 5 times a day in the direction of Mecca. And this is a constant reminder that you are living a divine life and a constant reminder of God. The third pillar is to give to the poor. The fourth pillar is to fast during the holy month of Ramadan. And the fifth and final pillar is the undertaking of a pilgrimage to Mecca once in your lifetime. And this only applies to you if you can afford to travel to Mecca in Saudi Arabia, and if you're physically capable of doing so. After the death of Muhammad, the leadership of Islam passed to men known as caliphs, which means successor. And the caliphs were elected to rule for life. The first of these men was Abu Bakr, who is Muhammad's best friend. And Abu Bakr was followed by Umar, then Uthman, 2 other early converts and close companions of Muhammad. And finally Ali, who is Muhammad's son-in-law. These 4 collectively are known as the rightly guided caliphs, and they were chosen by the elders of Medina. During their rule, the Islamic State grew to encompass most of the Middle East, including North Africa, Egypt, Persia, and Palestine. But after the assassination of Ali, questions of who should rule the Muslim community created some major rifts that persist to this day. So less than 30 years after the death of Muhammad, civil war pitted Muslim against Muslim. And it's out of this conflict that one of the most enduring rifts in Islam was born. On one side were the Sunni Muslims, who believed that the caliphs should be selected by the Islamic community. On the other side were the Shia, which means party or faction. And the Shia believed that the leadership of the Muslim community should derive from the bloodline of Ali and his son Hussein, who were blood relatives of Muhammad. Both died at the hands of their political and religious enemies, and it's believed that Muhammad had chosen Ali to be his successor. So, in the beginning, this was more of a political divide than a religious divide, but over time the Sunni-Shia split acquired a deeper significance. Shia Muslims gave their leaders, who are known as imams, religious authorities that caliphs lacked, allowing them alone to interpret and tell people what the Quran meant. So now there are 2 dynasties that you need to know about. The first is the Umayyad Dynasty, who ruled from 661 to 750. The first leader of the Umayyad Dynasty was Umayyad, who gained support by Sunni Muslims. And he was initially a major opponent of Muhammad, not a Muslim, who later converted to Islam after military defeat. So he's about the furthest thing from a blood relative of Muhammad. The Umayyad dynasty didn't last long, but it was successful at spreading Islamic faith through conquest. So Islamic rule was spreading. It spread all the way to Spain in Europe, also took parts of the Byzantine Empire, and the Umayyad moved the capital from Mecca to Damascus in modern-day Syria, which was part of the Byzantine Empire before it was conquered. But despite all the successes they had at growing the empire, the Umayyad family didn't last long for a number of reasons. Okay, so the initial intention of Muhammad was to spread Islam. He viewed it as a world religion. But the Umayyad, like the Greeks and Persians, tended to favor tolerance of other religions in conquered territories for political purposes as opposed to forced conversions. This upset Muslims who knew what the intention of Muhammad was, and it was to convert people to Islam. So they were viewed as putting politics ahead of religion and ahead of Muhammad's intentions. Secondly, in the conquered territories, they gave more rights to Arabs than to non-Arab Islamic converts, which obviously upset non-Arabs and was against the spirit of Islam, that all Muslims were equal under the eyes of God. Thirdly, they didn't have the support of Shia Muslims, who didn't view them as legitimate rulers because they didn't come from the bloodline of Ali and Hussein. Finally, the Umayyad had a very lavish court lifestyle, and this was completely at odds with the ideal that Muhammad had set forth in Medina, so many people protested their lavish lifestyle. So by the year 747, Muslims and Muslim converts become disenchanted with the Umayyad, and a family who claimed that an ancestor had been the cousin of Muhammad overthrew the Umayyad in 750. And this family is known as the Abbasids, and they were Persians, not Arabs. So they moved the capital from Damascus in Syria to Baghdad. And Baghdad was a site of old Babylon. It was a major cultural center of the old Persian Empire. And the Abbasids would rule until 1258, until the Mongols came. So the Abbasid Caliphate is considered a golden age of Islam. So it goes without saying that the culture of both the Umayyad and Abbasid Islamic empires were influenced by the teachings of Islam. One contentious issue that comes up is the place of women in society, and this generates a lot of controversy, and some people criticize Islam as being sexist. I personally think really the same arguments could be made for Christianity. So you look at the Quran, it speaks of equality of all Muslims, but there are some passages that definitely show men have more rights and advantage over women and are more intelligent than women. It's important to keep the historical context in mind when reading something from the Quran or reading something from the Bible. The tribal culture in pre-Islamic Arabia was extremely patriarchal, and Islam, for its part, when it came about, offered women significantly more freedoms than what they had prior. When Islam blended with Persian culture under the Abbasids, traditionally Persian culture was also very patriarchal, and women were considered property, were told to stay at home, received little education. It's difficult to separate the traditional values of the region with the religion that emerged from the region. So under the Abbasids, girls received very little education. Boys entered school at the age of 7, and once they completed the mandatory education, some boys continued schooling in madrasas, which are religious schools, where they learned to be political and religious leaders in the community. Two of the areas that flourished under the Abbasid dynasty were art and philosophy, and Islamic art used a lot of calligraphy, or the art of elegant handwriting, and this developed in response to the need for religious decorations. And so the Islamic period was also a period of cultural flowering in the Islamic world. I really see the development of Islamic art, which is based on calligraphy or elegant handwriting and geometric shapes. There's the development of Islamic philosophy, and Muslim philosophers took the teachings of Greek philosophers, Socrates, Plato, especially Aristotle, and combined them with ideas in the Quran to create sort of a distinctive Islamic philosophy. And this is similar to what the Byzantines did, but they would combine Greek philosophy with Christian ideas. So you'll learn more about the Umayyad and Abbasid dynasty in this week's required readings. This is the end of the podcast, and thank you for listening.